What's up, everybody? This is your boy Pac-Man here, and today we're having a video on one of my favorite subjects, actually, Star Wars. I just wanted to share a little bit with you guys in regards to this. A question has really been hanging in the back of my mind, a question which has consumed many but is rarely answered to a sufficient degree. Why has the Disney Star Wars brand failed so badly? The answer to that, as I can see it, is quite simply this. Disney turned their back on their fan base, particularly the fan base which kept the franchise alive for, 4 decades, which is the traditional nerd. That's right, the nerd. They turned their back on the nerd. Previously, in pretty much American culture, the nerd geek all throughout up until the late 90s was heavily stigmatized in mainstream culture. Nerds were heavily bullied, looked upon, and treated as cultural outcasts, locked in their rooms playing D&D, Magic the Gathering, computer games, etc. In the dawn of the new millennium, a culture shift, a major one, occurred, where the nerd culture became more mainstream, and the mainstream culture adopted many aspects of the nerd culture and were no longer looked down upon by most. This opened the door for our world today, the world where the geek culture is a regular part of most people's lives. As the original Star Wars trilogy ended, the geek culture kept it alive through comics, through the extended universe, through many different ways. They kept it on life support. The fan base, that's right, the fans, kept Star Wars on life support for 4 decades. 4 decades. Fast forward to today, Star Wars is in the hands of the Disney Corporation. The Star Wars brand now stands in dark waters with a sharp divide in the fan base over the direction of pretty much where the brand has taken. Why is there such a divide in the fan base? The answer is really quite simple. In an effort to expand the audience past the nerds to the general population, they dumbed down the story. They turned it into a mediocre sci-fi money-making machine on par with, I would say, maybe just a little bit better than Transformers. By turning their backs on the culture which kept their series alive for decades, okay, the nerds, the true fans, what the Disney Corporation ended up doing is they took something that the nerds found beautiful, which was held in high regard, which was held on high as sacred to the nerd, and bastardized it into a cash-grabbing sci-fi flick franchise thingamajigger, ignoring the cultural impact the series had on so many people. Simply, they stole something which was culturally owned by the nerds. They may own the IP for it, but the culture behind it was owned by the nerds. And they tried to make it appeal to a more broad spectrum of the general population, which, unlike the nerds, don't really care about continuity, lore, good storytelling, sci-fi stuff. For example, in my personal opinion, The Last Jedi was probably one of the most poorly written movies ever released as a AAA title. Pretty much every nerd on the internet has already given their critique on the film, so I won't really go into that other than I hated the movie with a passion. I think that it was written by a chimp with with a pencil and maybe a little bit too much sugar in its diet. This has taken the fans and divided them into two camps, really. On one side, you have the nerds who like George Lucas's stories and who like the EU, the fans that have been following Star Wars for decades. And on the other side, you have the people who have no initial investment in the story, making the current changes to the style and the content that the films are undergoing unimportant to them. When continuity really starts becoming inconsistent. It generally pisses off nerds, and because we enjoy well written stories which make sense in the larger scope of a fictional universe, I mean, because they keep messing things up like this, they're just pissing us off. A great case for this is the Fallout video game series, where the newest games are generally disliked by the core fans who like the original games, due to the steady removal of the main role playing aspects of the game, effectively changing the genre from an RPG game to a first person shooter to appeal to a more generalized base of players rather than a niche. All while really retconning aspects of the story and dumbing down the gameplay in total, limiting the amount of choice that you have in the game. Due to this, the core fans are now more excited for the Outer Worlds to release by Obsidian rather than the next installment in the Fallout series. I love Star Wars to death, and it's been a part of my life since childhood. I saw the prequel movies in the theaters. I saw the original ones, of course, on VHS tape at home. When going into episode 7 and 8, I saw both of those in the theaters. However, I won't be seeing episode 9 in the theaters. I mean, I'm probably just going to wait for it to release on rental. And if I do decide to see it at all, that is. I mean, I walked out of Solo after the first 20 minutes, and I don't plan on finishing it. Unless things change, I see nerds like myself moving to another IP, leaving Star Wars as a memory of something that used to be good long ago in a galaxy far, far away. Thanks for listening. If you like the content, please give it a like, give it a subscribe, and thanks a lot.